we will we will go ahead and do a brief introduction about this session. First of all, thanks to Sririndya for um, helping us conduct this series, and special thanks to Hanna, who is the host. And this is the last webinar in the session about animal welfare and disaster risk reduction. We have been talking about incorporating animal welfare into the disaster management area of India. In the first session, second, we went into the wildlife part, how to incorporate wildlife, how is wildlife being affected by disasters, and what can we do. Again, an interesting session. And this is about uh, children. How do we change that behavior towards uh, how do we grow a culture of disaster risk reduction of animals among the young generation. So we have been talking about these few of these DRN initiatives in our sessions which we have conducted with the school children last year and this year in Kerala, and we got really good feedback about how children perceive animals, and how do they how engaging they were while conducting those sessions, etc. So during the time I spent with Humane Society International, earlier I was not in this field, and HSI India was the first organization through which I could get into this field and know more about animals and disasters. So one key thing to change, I realized, is the people's mindset towards animals. How do we see animals in our daily lives? We see many incidents where animals are treated with extreme cruelty, and we see many incidents where people, including the small children, attacked by animals. A lot of cases in Kerala also in the recent past. So, do we really understand animals? In the last session, also, when Sumant was talking about animals, we do not really understand animals. We don't know how a dog behaves, or what a dog thinks, what is the right way to approach these animals, be it domestic or wild animals. Or do we really have to approach these animals? Do we really have to handle these animals? We do not know animals, and sometimes we don't want to know animals. We are not used to them. Maybe we were not told to get used to them from our childhood. These are some problems. From our childhood, it is not. So many of us, including me in my childhood, I was not told how to handle an animal, or how to build a relation with animals around me. There were a lot of animals around me, and same with all of us. Dr. Shager once told me that uh, in the case of disaster risk reduction also, but generally, that the change should happen from our early childhood. A relation building with animals requires behavioral change from our childhood. And this section is going to talk about that, exactly about that. So we need to change we need to bring the change in our kids, so that the next generation will benefit from that. That's how that's the best way of approach, I believe, to build a change in the coming generation. So when children are children get used to the animals, children from their early childhood itself, they play with their surroundings, with all those cockroaches, any those we many of us are afraid of these small insects such as cockroaches and all. So all starts from that early childhood problems and all. So when we are used to it, when we handle them with no fear but love and care and empathy, we are starting, and we are nurturing a culture among ourselves, and we are that huge change in our behavior happens. We start incorporating, or we start thinking about our fellow animals in every stage of our lives. When we are told, when we tell people to prepare an emergency kit for your home or a school disaster management club, sorry, school disaster management plan, all those things, we automatically start incorporating animals to it. We see many instances where people don't leave their animals behind when a disaster strikes and early warning is released and evacuation is happening. Many instances that not only pet animals or livestock, cows, goats, all those animals as well, people do not leave them behind for various reasons, but the connection towards the animal is also it's a very key element in that. So we'll have to take care of those emotions also, and nurture those emotions among our children as well, so that they grow up being better individuals and considering the our fellow beings also a part of our society and plan accordingly. So that's the objective of this session, and who is better than Dr. Shager to talk about it? So exactly, this was the idea. This was the idea of Dr. Shager, and later on we started working with school children to build their awareness and to have a good relationship with animals as well. Recently, we could do a session in Wayanad. Again, Wayanad in India for the first time. Uh, Wayanad has formed School DM Club, which is a really great initiative. And all the schools in Wayanad, students from 8th to 12th standard are included in the School DM Club, and a module is being prepared for them. Now, disaster risk reduction is being taught to the children from their early ages. And Wayanad was kind enough to include animal welfare and DRR also as part of their curriculum. And we could do a session, an interactive session where children act as animals, children act as the potential hazards, and such kind of scenario building exercises we could do with the children, and they enjoyed it really. Such kind of initiatives should start across our country, and Kerala is way advanced in those kind of things, and really happy to see that. And Dr. Shekhar will be joining us shortly. Yeah, here he is. Hello, sir. Yeah, was just going to introduce you, sir. It's really great to have Dr. Shekhar here. I've known him for my since the day I started learning about disaster management. He even came to my college, and we could interact with him during his session. So now, new position to his already, he has been the member secretary at Kerala State Disaster Management Authority, and now the Chief Resilience Officer as well. And it's great to have you here. And Dr. Shekhar is academically associated with a lot of institutes and organizations such as the Center for Disaster Resilience, faculty of ITC, University of Twente, the Netherlands. He's a visiting professor there, and he has been an expert in various areas such as spatial risk informed planning, disaster management, institution building, end to end early warning system for the last mile connectivity, risk assessment, anticipation, action planning, decision support system for disaster reduction, and a lot of things. And it's great to hear Dr. Shekhar, the knowledge he has and the way he shared the knowledge he has. He's a very good teacher. He's a very good speaker, and I love listening to him. Like whenever a session is being arranged and Dr. Shekhar's name is that, I'm curious to know what he's talking about next. But, and again, a lot of ideas I could get from him. Building a permanent shelter for animals, which we are starting in Kerala. So the early process, I would not like to talk more about it, but and school children, how this knowledge of animal welfare and DRR, the behavioral changes in animals can be brought into school children, etc., was again the ideas shared by Dr. Shekhar. So it's great to have you here, sir, and looking forward to hearing you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you, HSA. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm actually not speaking from office today, being a holiday. I'm actually in a family function, but in between, I took the liberty to conceal myself in the freedom of my car to talk to all of you. I'm really sorry that I'm not really going to give any presentation in that sense, which I think is not really wise as well when we speak of starting from schools, because in schools we don't look up on presentations, we look up on blackboards. At least I did. Now let's start with um, how we look at animals in our early days of life. I have a daughter who is now about 6 years, and at least Praveen or those who follow me in my Facebook would have seen she, from her very young age, started having an affinity to insects, and little rodents and burrowing species. So she is kind of having no inhibition to hold a cockroach, catch a lizard, take a fish, pick up a little, this earthworm, or play with a squirrel. So from a very young age, at the age of 3, when she started really playing around our house, she started having no inhibition to animals. And don't think that this inhibition to animals arise in us, no, kind of as a natural instinct. No, maybe to snake we might, but again, why? Because our parents have taught us that snakes will bite. To dogs, because they say that the dogs might bite, and particularly the strong dogs, stray dogs might have rabies. Cats will scratch you if they are angry, and slowly. And then when our parents see cockroach, what do? Either they kill it, or they say, yeah, yuck. No, lizards, the same. We have that same attitude to all of it. So I was always for animals. I always loved to handle animals with hand. Be it a snake, I have caught a lot of snakes by hand when I was a young college student. And I went to college much earlier than many of you would have. I didn't go to +2. I went to pre-degree, which was actually held in colleges and not in schools. So in those college days onwards, I used to pick up snakes, handle stray dogs. If stray dogs would come into the campus, I don't mind chasing them or going and getting hold of them and putting them out of the campus. I also had a lot of little squirrels and lizards. I even had a tarantula as my pet. Although growing a tarantula in India is always a crime. I worked for the forest department, so I had the liberty of staying in a forest quarters in the middle of a jungle, a forest, actually, Parambiculam Wildlife Reserve, and we had a tarantula who was a visitor, so we started feeding it, and he or she, whichever it is, arachnidae, I don't know which gender it belonged to, became a close friend, and they started living in my room. So I used to feed it with lizards and little crickets and whatever. So when my child started kind of walking around her footsteps, she would see a lizard, and I would happily go and pick it up. At least the tail would be disconnected, and I'll go and give that tail to her. Initially, she used to try and munch it. She thought that father is giving me something to eat. So that's the only thing that I restricted. I said, no, it's not to eat, but then you can handle it. You can play with it. It's an animal. And then cockroaches. Cockroaches are very much available in all households. We tend to shoo them off and kill them. And I would pick this cockroaches alive and give it to her, and she would hold it in hand. And beetles and wasps, and she has held honeybees and big wasps. Now, this was consciously cultivated. Think that it doesn't come instinctively. It can only be cultivated consciously. You know what she wanted? At the age of 5, she decided that she will have a dog as a pet. And she didn't choose for any small ones, the poodle or that kind of dog. So I showed him a lot of showed her elder sister has a terrier as a pet. So I showed her a number of dogs and said, no, these dogs are of this size. And she went and picked Rajapalem because yes, obviously it's beautiful. And then I told her, see, this dog is very big for you to handle. She said, yeah, that's okay. But now I'm small. I'll grow with him. I would really love to have a Rajapalem. So she started handling this big dog at the age of 5. At the age of 5. How? Again, because that we inculcated this at that childhood. I was consciously for making my younger daughter close to animals to make her feel for it. So this process actually went on, and at some point of time, we realized that her inhibition for animals have completely gone. Then came an interesting event, and again, HSA was very much involved in that. We had a stray dog which was ran over by a little vehicle which was going through our street, and the stray dog actually couldn't move. It was yawning with pain for one whole day, and then the evening, my elder daughter, who already has a dog as a pet, came home and she heard this dog crying. So she was very anxious. And then she teamed up with her younger sister and went to the dog. And, they were obviously it was a stray dog. So they were a bit worried. But then she managed to go and give some water and all. And then and then in the evening, when I reached home, they both came to me and said, see, there is a problem. There's a dog which is not well and it's crying and nobody is attending. Everybody have ignored it. What should we do? So I said, let's call somebody from HSA. So I called my good friend Sally. Sally was known to me for quite some time. So I called Sally and said, see, Sally, there is this issue. I would really love to have some help from you. And HSA basically involved and sent in a team of people who would come and take care of the dog. The next day, they took the dog to a shelter and actually kind of facilitated it with a treatment. Kids wouldn't become sensitive to animals unless we inculcate it, and unless we inculcated it at a very young age. For people who could afford, yes, we could actually have pets. But then that's a luxury. Many times it's a luxury. So what could be done is we could start very early talking to them about animals and letting them handle animals. So if I remember correctly, some time back when Praveen and me was discussing, I had suggested to Praveen that if you are, I gave him a slot in an exhibition, and I remember this very clearly. And Praveen came. So the exhibit items were brought in, and at some point of time, when we were talking about it, I was telling him that you shouldn't come with all these posters and all that, but I want you to bring some animals, small animals, not big ones, like a toad, a frog, a cockroach, a lizard, so that when school children come over, we could tell them that you could touch them and they're not harmful and that they're not going to bite. You know, it's only that way that we can make them think for animals. So when we start talking about schools, the first time that I handled animals was when I was doing my pre-degree first year, when we had a dissection class. I was killing an animal. I was cutting a frog. Of course, we have had animals to eat. Frogs, particularly green frogs, were edible and people used to eat it. And I've also had it. But then the way that we learned it, that the animals are friendly and that they could be handled and maybe even made a pet, is something that we learn only later on, when we actually get to a stage when our consciousness starts working. 1 second, Praveen. Yeah. So this kind of can you hear me? Yeah. So
Yes, we can.
yeah. So what I am trying to tell you is you cannot assume that even if a animal friendly state or an animal friendly system would facilitate people becoming animals. There's a saying, catch them young. You have to kind of inculcate it consciously. And how do you do that? In schools, we have to teach them. How do we teach them or familiarize them with animals? There are ways of doing it. And this is one way of doing it. Informally. I did it informally with my kid as probably an experiment. But can we formalize this? In our environment studies classes at the lower classes, can we have them taken to the nearest pond or a swamp and make them touch a toad, catch a fish, pick up a lizard, get a cockroach at hand, have a wasp caught and examine it and let it go. Yes, it might sting, but then yes, that's also co-learning, right? I mean, you need to learn that yes, if you handle a wasp, it will bite you, but then everybody need not be bitten. So can we show it to them that honeybees, can you take a child to a honeybee and show that this is a honeybee? And the hive is probably something that we all see or many kids would see, but can we pick a honeybee and give it in their hand and say that this is a honeybee and you can kind of hold it? No, this is essential for the reason that if you look at the larger society, and let me be very self-critical here. If I look at Kerala, two dogs who would go rabid and might bite a person would catch headline news as if that all stray dogs are rabies affected. And that starting from kids to everybody starts thinking that every other stray dog that they see are all rabid affected. Now, what is the natural instinctive reaction of a human being? To beat and kill every dog that they see. No, children are told because children are actually taught that stray dogs might have rabbit, they when they see a dog tend to run. What does a dog do? A playful dog essentially will follow the child and then start playing with it. And the way that the dog plays is not how the humans play. So when it nips you or when it kind of comes and holds you, you think that it's going to bite. Why? Because the dog's behavior is not understood by children. We are not teaching how a dog would behave, how a snake would behave. When is that they tend to attack, and what are the indications of it becoming angry? And that those instincts are not taught. How can we do that? Again, you need to have a conscious lesson. We do definitely teach about Amazon forest. Yes, it's essential. But it is also essential to teach the stray dog, to teach about that little toad and the little frog, and the difference between a toad and a frog, and a cockroach, and a lizard, and a chameleon, and a wasp. All that is around you, and to live with it. Because if you don't do that, eventually, when we are not sensitive to animals, we become completely insensitive to our fellow beings. Sensitiveness is to be inculcated, and then the easiest is to inculcate it between your fellow co-learner, your classmate, but at the same time also to your surroundings by making them think that all these species that are around you, be it animals, wasps, and arachnidae, and all kinds of different things that you see around, are also your fellows in the melee. Lack of it actually is very well seen in Kerala. People tend to kill dogs, stray dogs particularly, thinking that all the dogs have rabbit. There are also very insensitive people that we have observed. People rear pets, they grow, they outgrow, they think that probably a Rajapalayam can be grown in a city home. They'll buy it, like my daughter did, and obviously we had the luxury to actually taking it to our family home where there is sufficient space to bring it up. So after a while, we have now kept there. But then people tend to just throw them out into the public space. I've seen hundreds of such dogs. Cats, no, when they get old, they need care like we need. And because that we lack empathy at that young age, although we have an affinity to a pet as a status symbol, after a while, we tend to also become uh, quite hard pressed for time and energy to take care of this old animal. Why? Because we are not responsible caretakers of the animals. We are not teaching them that yes, you can have a pet, but then pet like you will also become old and that it has a life and will die. So you need to basically also educate kids in this. If we look at schools, and this is one out of the box idea that I would really love to kind of put it here. I mean, these conversations that I always do with Praveen has triggered many things here and there. Uh, couldn't we think of a school, maybe a public school or a private school, where nowadays we talk about child-friendly spaces? But could we also not have a space where children and pets could interact, or children and animals could interact, and make them familiarized with animals, with toads, frogs, all kinds of non-venomous snakes at a very young age, if not a zoo, but a little park where one of the child can bring her pet or his pet and rest of the kids can play around with it. So they know that these animals can be handled safely. Secondly, we teach animal care obviously at different levels in different ways, but we also teach dissection. These days, in many places, dissection is all gone. People don't do that. They basically show it with little videos and all that. But who is actually doing this dissection? People who are not yet 18 years old and people who have been brought up who have not been exposed to animal care at a childhood level, who are only as empathetic to animals as the society is currently. So at a little more higher stage, when it comes to +2, +1, +2, at that stage, can we also make them handle some of these animals and rodents and bees and these kind of creatures that are around us? So can we also think of going to a college and telling them that yes, you might have a botany department, a zoology department, but we would like to have a little space where the youth here could interact with them. Third, while we speak of a lot of human empathy, like we see that in Israel and Palestine, there is a lot of war that is going on. In Ukraine, there's a lot of war going on. And we tend to be very empathetic about it. And we have processions against war and all that. But can we also have a program where school students come together across schools and start talking about, talking to public about responsible animal care? Greta spoke about climate change, right? Can we have that animal champion? Climate change is something that the globe has to respond to. But then caring an animal could have millions of champions in every school who could just go and talk to the people around them on how they should be more empathetic towards animals. When I went to MG University campus, where Praveen also studied, I saw that there are lots of stray dogs who are fed by the students there in the campus. And they don't buy it, and they are there everywhere. The hundreds of them, they're there everywhere, and they coexist with the students there. And the students feed them at a given point of time every day. So they're not hungry, they're not angry, nobody is pelting stones at them, nobody is kicking them, nobody is hitting them, and you could happily coexist. So you see, there are models like this. When you go to a town, you often see hundreds of stray dogs there. People think that all these stray dogs have to be killed, removed, so that our picture perfect town will be great looking. But I cannot imagine an Indian city without Indian pariha, without a cow. I lived many years abroad, and every time I come down to India, to any city, the way that stray animals and humans coexist is that one sight which fulfills my eye. No, because that's the picture which is actually perfect, where a human being is there and a dog is there. You go to any cave drawings in Italy or in India, all these cave drawings will have a human and invariably a dog. Indian pariha is in existence before humans and is with humans and might be there with aliens and robots. It's a resilient animal. And he is our friend. She is our friend. So, and there are many such, a rat snake is a friend. You don't need to kill it. You just have to shoo it off. For that matter, no snakes. We don't have to kill it by our action. So, this value to animals can only be inculcated at the lowest level. In Kerala, and I'll close with this one word, this one sentence, and after that we could discuss. Maybe we could also think of newer ideas if some of you have, so that we can think collectively. COVID, all of you know, closed down everything. And in Kerala was 1 month and 23 days before in terms of this country in considering COVID as a disaster and taking steps. So we closed down 1 month and 23 days before the rest of the country closed down. And in Kerala, there are a lot of people who have domestic elephants. They rear elephants at home. So when I went to recently to UK to Europe, where when I was talking to them, I asked them a question: can you think of an animal other than a goat and a cow, or a duck and a poultry, or for that matter, generally a poultry, for which we would have to take care of as humans? And even I asked this to school students recently in Wayanad. They had no answer. Nobody ever thought. Although everybody, an elephant is a big animal that fits your eye full, still nobody realized that elephants had to also be cared for. Kerala government had to spend roughly about 12 crore rupees in feeding elephants during COVID, because elephants ran out of job. How do elephants make money? They go for processions, the owners get some money and they're fed. If there are no processions, if there are no festivals to which elephants don't go, these days people don't use them for lifting heavy load except very few. The JCBs have overtaken. So elephants basically are used in very rare occasions for heavy lifting, but otherwise they are reared for processions. That's from where they make money. And the state government spent 12 crores in taking care of elephants. No? Inclusiveness is not only about including humans, it is also about including animals, including plants. So when we speak of inclusive disaster risk reduction, the inclusion as a word encompasses everything that is living. This framework needs to be taken down to the schools and taught. While when I speak of empathy and caring, I also would have to urge here that if an animal breeds profusely and become a pest, we need to cull it, because there has to be a balance. The natural balance that was there once in the earth is lost because of us, and the reason is humans. We have eaten more, we have watched on all this quite heavily, and therefore occasionally here or there you will see spiking up of certain animal numbers, which eventually becomes pests. They attack crops, they attack animals, they attack humans also. And in such situations, we also have to consciously decide on how we balance the numbers. It could either be by culling or by relocating, but what is essential has to be literally thought over again and again and decided. The first solution shall not be shoot it down, kill it. No. The first solution could be that we take them and move them to some other place, which is comparable to their original habitat. So this thought process currently as a society doesn't exist. As a community, we don't think like this, but we need to inculcate it at the school level and make children think like this. As they grow up and become matured citizens of the state, they will eventually consider animals as part of their milieu and take care of them as they go further. So maybe HSA could drive a campaign wherein the environmental science classes starting at the first standard could include some elements of touching and really feeling animals, and also value-based animal care. With these words, I stop. I'm not leaving. I'm leaving it for you to discuss. Let's talk about it. I think we got like 15 minutes more, so we can interact. And it's not that I have answers for everything, I must tell you, but then we can collectively think, and maybe based on this, HSA can pick up few elements of this, and we could really think of developing it into projects further. And in the meantime, your shelter proposal in Wayanad is very active. Just come to us. I've recommended some corpus fund from the state government for its continued care. So we will wait. Soon there'll be a decision on it. It has to go to the state executive committee. But we hope that we will also be able to provide a corpus fund for that shelter for its continued maintenance, like we do for human shelters. So all the 17 shelters that we built under NCRMP has a corpus fund here. Similarly, we would like to have that for the animal shelters. It's not that you build a shelter and leave it for itself to be cleaning itself. No, it's not a robot. It's not a live building as we see in Quantumania. So with those words, I close. Thank you.
That was a big happy news. Thank you so much for that. You have been a big inspiration to all our activities across India. And like every session, this has been also a very insightful session. And yes, like you said, the it has to be a cultural change. It has to be a behavioral change among children. And you are showing us the exact example we want to your kids, to your own kids, and what best could you provide, and what such kind of knowledge sharing and such kind of activities in Kerala, each and everything, each activity we start in Kerala is inspired by such thoughts and such changes and such people who are actually practically doing it. Thank you so much for that. And yes, I have noted down your recommendations, and we'll definitely try and incorporate them in our planning process. Thank you so much, sir. And I am giving this so over to you, Hannah. So Hannah is Hannah.
Yes, I can hear you, Praveen. Am I audible?
Yes, Anna,
Yes,
you are audible.
Okay, all right. So I think I'm 90 degree to the right. Okay,
You
I'll
are a
fix
bit
that.
tilted, that's all.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Shekhar, for your wonderful uh, presentation. It was definitely thought-provoking, a lot of newer ideas for us to think about. Now, I would like to open the session for any questions or discussions. If anybody have any questions, please feel free to put it up in the chat box, or you can raise your hands, or you're free to open the audio. Um, as he was talking, I was discussing with Praveen. So there is school in Ladakh, which is called a Sekmol, and so I'll be trying to bring in some students from there to our session, but unfortunately, like there's no good internet in that place. But anyway, as Dr. Shekhar was mentioning, that particular school is very peculiar. They have animals within the school. So as a routine, the first session of their classes comes, as far as I remember, it starts with milking of the cows, and students use these milk to prepare tea for themselves, and it's a very differently running school. So I really wish like Firoz from the school could join us, but unfortunately, but what I was trying to say is this kind of techniques and the way that they are involving animals to children are being practiced, at least in some places in India. And I've also seen in some schools abroad, not here in Australia and all, where one of my niece, who she is in preschool, and her photos with snakes, lizards. It was like one of the activities in the school. So these concepts have been practiced, and when okay, I think Firoz have
yes.
joined. Firoz, can you open your mic? Or so if yeah, if he is able to join, Firoz, I would like to introduce you. So I was just mentioning about your school, and he is from Ladakh. And since we have like a practical example of what Dr. Shekhar was talking, Firoz, will you be able to tell us what your school is doing and how are you involved with animals?
Sure. Hello, Julie. My name is Firoz. I'm from Ladakh. Is it okay in Hindi?
Yeah, definitely yes. No
Okay.
problem. Go ahead. It will be nice to hear from you. That's
Okay.
more important.
Okay.
If there is anybody who can understand Hindi,
I'm
maybe Hena or Praveen can translate, but it's okay.
okay. I'm more comfortable in Hindi. So मैं लद्दाख से हमारे स्कूल का नाम सिग्मोल है। सिग्मोल का फुल फॉर्म द स्टूडेंट एजुकेशन कल्चरल मूवमेंट ऑफ लद्दाख, जो शायद आप लोगों ने देखा होगा थ्री इडियट का मूवी, जिसमें फुनसुक वांडू होते हैं, उसी का स्कूल है। उसका रियल नाम सोनम वांचुक है। सो मैं उसी स्कूल में ही काम करता हूँ। मैं एक स्टूडेंट हूँ। अपनी 10 क्लास पास करके अभी 11 क्लास में गैप रख के इसमें फेलोशिप का मैनेजमेंट में कोर्स कर रहा हूँ। सो मैं अभी थोड़ा आप लोगों को बताता हूँ कि हमारे स्कूल में थोड़ा स्कूल के इंट्रोडक्शन दूंगा। इसके बाद मैं स्कूल में कौन सा क्या क्या एनिमल्स हम लोग क्या क्या करते हैं वो थोड़ा आप लोगों को बता देता हूँ। सो स्कूल मेन वही है कि एक अल्टरनेटिव नॉन गवर्नमेंट स्कूल है जो 1989 में स्टार्ट हुआ था, जिस टाइम लद्दाख का एजुकेशन सिस्टम बहुत खराब थे। लद्दाख में बच्चे 99% 98% बच्चे 10 में फेल होते थे, क्योंकि उस टाइम लद्दाख का एजुकेशन सिस्टम बहुत खराब था। पढ़ाने वाला जम्मू कश्मीर से आते थे, वो लोग हिंदी इंग्लिश में पढ़ाते थे, लद्दाख के बच्चों को वो समझ में नहीं आता था। उसकी वजह से क्लास फर्स्ट से 8 क्लास की टेक्स्ट बुक सारे हिंदी में आते थे, उर्दू में आते थे। 8 क्लास के बाद चेंज होकर सारा इंग्लिश में चले जाते थे। तो बच्चे वो समझने में बहुत मुश्किल होते थे, बच्चे फेल होते थे। तो जहाँ मैं स्कूल में काम कर रहा हूँ, स्कूल में जो बच्चा 10 में फेल होता है उनको ही एडमिशन मिलता है। एक सस्टेनेबल अल्टरनेटिव कैंपस है, जहाँ पे कैंपस पूरा बच्चे ही चलाते हैं। स्कूल चलाने वाला पूरा प्रिंसिपल, हेडमास्टर सब कुछ बच्चे ही चलाते हैं। अब यहाँ पे क्या होता है कि 1 साल का कोर्स होता है जो सारे बच्चे स्कूल चलाते हैं। उसमें से इलेक्शन सिस्टम होता है। मेन स्कूल का प्रिंसिपल 3R to 3H है। 3R मीन्स रीडिंग, राइटिंग, अरिथमेटिक, वो तो स्कूलों में पढ़ाया जाते हैं। हमारे स्कूल में ज्यादातर फोकस देते हैं 3H पे। 3H काइंड हार्ट, ब्राइट हेड और स्किल हैंड, इन तीनों पे ज्यादातर फोकस दिया जाता है। सो अब हमारे कैंपस में जैसे कि बच्चों का रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, जैसे कि हमारे कैंपस में 3 गायें हैं। सो हम लोग गायों का ये यूज करते हैं कि पहले तो हम लोग ज्यादा बाहर से दूध खरीद के नहीं लाते, बच्चों का ही खुद रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होता है गाय का दूध निकालना। गाय का दूध निकाल के जितने भी दूध आया अपनी किचन में बेचना, किचन से जितने भी पैसा आया उसी पैसे को विंटर में गाय को घास लाना। उससे क्या होता है कि एक तो उतना ज्यादा बाहर से टाटा मिल्क का दूध का डब्बे लाना नहीं पड़ते हैं। दूसरी चीज की बच्चे एक तरफ से उसके अंदर एक बच्चे जिस टाइम बच्चे को एक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी हो देता है, एक रिस्पॉन्सिबल पर्सन बन जाते हैं। और दूसरी चीज की उसको पता चल जाता है, उससे बहुत सारे अलग अलग चीजें सीखने को मिल जाता है। जैसे कि किस तरह एनिमल्स को टेक केयर करना है, कितना घास खाते हैं, कितना पानी देना है, गाय का दूध क्या मतलब किचन को बेच के उससे थोड़ा बिजनेस का बेसिक आइडिया आ जाते हैं। और जैसे कि अगर मार्केट में 60 रुपीज का 1 लीटर का दूध होगा तो 10 रुपीज कम करके 40 रुपीज में बेचते हैं। उससे जैसे कि इकोनॉमिक्स में पढ़ाते हैं, वहीं से बच्चों को प्रैक्टिकली गाय से उससे बच्चे अलग अलग प्रैक्टिकली चीजें सीखने को मिल जाते हैं। और उसी तरह घोड़े हैं, घोड़ा चलाना सिखाते हैं। जैसे कि आज तक लद्दाख में लड़कियों का घोड़े का टीम नहीं होता है, तो हमारे स्कूल में बच्चों को सबको घोड़े चलाना सिखाना, उससे बहुत सारे अलग अलग चीजें रखते हैं। जैसे कि भेड़ बकरी रखते हैं, उस भेड़ बकरियों का हम क्या करते हैं कि उसका वूल को हम लोग को बच्चे खुद को नीटिंग वीटिंग सब कुछ सिखाते हैं, उसको किस तरह आया, ऐसे बहुत सारे अलग अलग चीजें उससे सीखने को मिल जाते हैं।
Yeah,
जी
anyway,
सर,
thank you so much, Feroz.
आई होप आप लोगों को समझ
Very
में आ
amazing.
गया।
Yes.
Thank you so
थैंक यू।
much, Feroz, for coming. I know the internet issue which made you run about a little bit to find a proper place.
या
So thank you so much for sharing. It's great to know that school-led, sorry, children-led schools are already kind of practicing it. So thank you so much, Feroz, once again. And I would like to read
थैंक यू सो
out.
मच फॉर गिविंग दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी।
I would like to read out a quick question which is in the chat box. It is from Sri Ram. So the question is, how can the issue of cruelty to animals, particularly during events like Mushur Puram festival in Kerala, be addressed and mitigated to ensure the well-being and ethical treatment of these revered animals in cultural celebration? From a disaster point of view, this use of animals in processions could be seen as a hazard. It's a question, and why not bring a
Yeah, I was actually typing a reply to this, but then now that there is time, I'll react to it. We have to understand that India is a culturally highly deep-rooted country. So when you speak of culturally relevant festivals, they have hundreds of years of tradition. In the case of Puram, not less than 100 years tradition is there. Now, if you want to make changes to tradition, it is not the event in itself where you have to make changes, but it is in the people who conduct the events that the changes have to be. The current generation is so bonded to having live elephants displayed there. And the current generation believes that without live elephants, domestic elephants, on top of which all different colors are exhibited, that the Puram will not be complete. How can you make that change? You can only make change by educating the lower set of community now, the younger set of the community who are in schools, starting from schools, telling them that this is a weird thing to do in the modern world, and we could do the same fanfare with much more colors, probably using light or all different kinds of other technology that we have. No? Now, when we start talking to children about this, slowly children will imbibe this. A generation later, this will end. 2, currently, there is a lot of elephants that are available to domesticate. No, because elephant rearing is a habit in Bihar, and they are transported, they are reared, they are grown. Now, this habit has to also legally come to an end. In the past, anybody could buy an elephant even in Kerala. Those who were captured by the forest from the forest areas. But these days, no, it's not the case anymore. Elephants cannot be caught from the forests and handed over to private persons. But things are changing. It'll change. So there has to be a lack of availability at some point of time, and a conscious imbibing of a cultural value wherein we have to tell them that no, rearing elephants and kind of making them to do all kinds of display is not magnanimous, but instead using tech, high tech, to give out that very same feeling is more more modern and more like human. So this will take time. Now, considering it as a hazard, that's a very interesting question. Now, I see that Sriram is the one who has asked. Sriram, in the last 100 years, how many times did elephants ransack Thrissur? Do you have any numbers with you? As against the number of times firecrackers have ransacked it. So we have to balance, right? There has to be a history. The history has to tell us. Firecrackers have kind of caused serious fatalities in Puram, enormous number of times, smaller and big. But on the other side, how many times have elephants done this? So when we point at elephants as a hazard, we should remember, yes, it's a possible hazard, but there's a much, much graver and more historically proven hazard with which we are playing almost every year. So the organizers would also weigh the same way. Therefore, we have to bring about this change, not just by removing elephants from the scene, but also by removing firecrackers from the scene. Pyrotechnics are far more modern than we see now, and pyrotechnics could be used very effectively for Puram. There has been many interactions about it, but the change is slow. It will take time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shekhar. There is one more question. I'll quickly read it. To summarize, the question is, can we draw upon India's diverse traditions and cultures to explore the integration of age-old community practices like animal shelters and herding strategies during disaster into modern DM plans? Also, the question is also about how can we replicate the project that HSI is planning to run in Wayanad? Dr. Shekhar, if we can answer the first question about the age-old traditions of community practices like animal shelter and herding during disaster in the modern DM plans. How can we, is it possible to interpret?
Yeah, but then, see, incorporating this in the DM plans, yes, but then the question is, the DM plan is also very human-centric, right? We talk about domestic animals only. We rarely speak about wild animals in the times of disasters. Now, we speak about a lot of human-animal conflict happening. Have we not really most of us don't think that it is for some reason that these animals are coming out. What is that reason? That's where we have to plug this problem, right? So if you just put it in DM plan and think that the DM plan will work on its own, it will not. You need a sensitive institutional mechanism to kind of take up this cause and work for it. In Kerala, we have been very receptive towards a lot of this inclusion perspectives, be it disability, transgender, tribal, all this. We have a DRR program which we try to use in terms of ensuring inclusion. Similarly, we also have an approach towards animal facilitation during disasters and also trying to prepare. That is why we actively collaborate with HSA. HSA has worked very closely with District Disaster Management Authority of Wayanad because they have a large number of domesticated animals in Wayanad. And yes, they have found support for constructing a shelter. But when I look at it from an administrative perspective, I see that yes, they support us to build it, but who will maintain it? That is why we decided that we will propose that the asset has to be transferred to the local government. There has to be a shelter management committee, as in the case of a human shelter management, and there has to be a corpus fund which will facilitate with an interest from the corpus fund for the continued maintenance of the shelter. And the shelter design itself has to be multi-purpose. So our office architect will also be looking at this shelter design eventually once the government approves it. So you see, this is because the state had been very sensitive to these kind of causes for a long time, and we have very active, close relationship. As you can see, Praveen is a good friend, Sally is a good friend. We have tried and stepped in and facilitated HSA's activities whenever they face difficulties, to the extent that is possible from our side. So this is all possible, but then it takes a bit of closeness between people, and you also need active people to go around and get it done.
True then, sir. Absolutely. It's a beginning. It's a beginning, and there's been a
And
very limited.
somebody is telling something there about Puram tradition, removing them and bringing technology in the tradition would result in cultural loss. I'm not saying that it will lose. Culture is only a practice, right? A long practice. So the next generation, if they think that no, we don't want to domesticate elephants, and that the elephants is wise to be in the wild wilderness, and we will go there and see them, there ends the problem. The culture is gone. A new tradition will come with modern tech. The traditions and customs are only a time-tested system which brought about, which came in owing to certain degree of convenience and certain degree of availability. Now, when the convenience and the availability changes, traditions and customs are also bound to change. We had Sati, we changed it. Rajamra Mohan Roy changed it. We all studied in school. So it'll change. It'll come about. It'll take time, but it'll come about. And I think we need to do it, because then otherwise, we cannot call ourselves human, right? Just to live, I mean, living in the cages where the most sustainable and environmentally, ecologically friendly way of living. So let's go to caves is not what we should do. We should change. We should transcend. And believe me, in the lifetime of you and me, we are going to actually see many of our kids going to Mars and living there. And that's inevitable. So it's going to happen. It's only a matter of time.
Sir, excuse me, if I may, can I speak?
Sriram is asking a very technical question, and I don't want to leave him just like that. Yes, if what kills more is a benchmark, yes, what kills more is a benchmark. What causes more damage is a benchmark. Now, because then that's where quantities are, and that's where one can actually take it to a planning and administrative process. No, yes, we can believe that the moon will cut open into two, and that it is going to fall on Earth's surface, and that the Earth, half of Earth is going to be pieced away. Yes, a very plausible scenario, but never has happened, and humans are not going to plan for it and invest for it. It's as simple as that. So cost benefit is the ultimate method of getting things mainstreamed and administered. If you don't have cost benefit, you don't have a case to prove.
Hello?
Yeah,
Yeah.
please, Nana.
Yeah. Can I speak? I mean,
Yes. I think we have reached 4 o'clock.
Yeah, okay. Okay. No,
Who is
when I saw, like removing elephants, this is just one instance.
We can't hear you actually. I'm sorry.
Sandra, we can't hear you.
Cause in a cultural loss. Some. Okay. Am I audible now? Hello.
Better.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, I'm too lazy to type. That's why I'm asking. Removing elephants like from a big Puram would result in a cultural loss, and you've explained the answer for that as well. But instead of completely the culture and traditions and customs, can we impose stricter laws to protect these animals, but and also use them for the for such events? before Trishupuram, events like Trishupuram, elephants are being mistreated, are left starved for such causes. So can we bring or impose stricter changes or laws for this mistreatment of animals? So that is my question. So
Sandra,
instead of
there is no dearth
completely
of
removing such a significant.
Sandra, there is no dearth of laws in India. The laws are very well written. If you read some of these animal laws, you could be hanged to death for mistreating animals. I mean, if there's a smart judge, he could even hang you for it. So it's not about laws, having laws or regulations. But the very same humans who make the laws and regulations are far more reluctant in kind of behaving appropriately. For example, you look at Puram. There is always a struggle. Every year, one of my people go there and prepare the crowd management plan there. Every year, it's a new scenario, a new plan that has to be prepared because people want to be closer and closer. People want to be more and more coming to it, and everybody ignores the carrying capacity of the place. They ignore the fact that a lot of elephants are around and they could go wrong. And even if you tell them to stay away along, such that even if something unwanted happens, we could contain and mitigate the gravity of the event. People don't listen. People don't hear. People just ignore. So when we are talking about laws, regulations, yes, it's all there. But remember, we are all humans, and people tend to believe that a law is written to break it. First to break it and then to follow it. So until our society starts thinking of being a law-abiding society, all these restrictions cannot be enforced by the available enforcement systems. You will have a million police officers there, even they will not be able to control a 10 million crowd who will come to see it. And those who know Puram also knows every year the number of people who are coming to see it is increasing, and it's not decreasing. It's just increasing and increasing. So we have to basically inculcate a culture of slowly taking it out. And also, to answer your question of continue to using them, you won't be able to capture any more elephants. Slowly that's going to end. You won't get elephants. So then maybe we should think of cows and oxen and bullocks and all that, to use for this fanfare than elephants. And I am looking at that scenario very soon. We will also see robotic elephants. In Kerala, one man made a robotic elephant and few temples took them. Robotic elephants. So they behave just like an elephant. And in the era of AI, you could have a robotic elephant, which you want to make it ROG. We could also tweak it and put a Terminator there. It will become ROG as well. You see, so it will give the entire flavor of it. As Sriram was asking, we could make it a hazard also. If that's what we want. But then, in the era of AI, all this is possible. So what I'm saying is, at this end, we should be open. We shouldn't kind of feel that all these traditions and cultures have to last, because there's a time point when it'll invariably change, and we have to accept that change.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shekhar. I believe the question was well answered. So I know that we are like a 10 minutes over the time. So unfortunately, I have to close the session today. So once again, thank you all for joining at this very insightful event in collaboration with HSI. Today, we had the privilege of hosting Dr. Shekhar as our guest speaker, and his words have certainly left a lasting impact on all of us. So he touched upon very crucial aspects today on animal inclusive education, and essence of instilling the consciousness at the very young age. One of the key takeaways was that the notion that children have a very remarkable ability to grasp and internalize concepts from a very young age. So by introducing them to practical environmental education very on, we can instill the sense of responsibility, consciousness, empathy towards the towards the environment. from their formative years. And also he mentioned about communication, the effective ways that we convey information and how that influences people and children. So in closing, I would like to extend a heartfelt thanks to Dr. Shekhar for sharing his experience and insights with us. Your dedication to environmental education and advocacy is truly inspiring, and your words have undoubtedly resonated with all those that are present today, especially for joining us, giving us time in middle of a family function. Thank you so much for that. And lastly, thank you to our esteemed audience who for your active participation and support. I also like to thank HSI. It is the third session that we in the Academy is doing with HSI, and all the three sessions was very insightful. It's all there in our YouTube platform if anybody wants to go back and hear very concrete recommendations and takeaways. Thank you so much, everyone. So I think we can close our session today and hope we all have a more resilient future. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.